Welcome to our in-person and virtual audiences. My name's Amy McDonald. I'm the director of CitySpace. This is our first Curated Cuisine of 2023. But this is not the first time that Tiffani Faison has graced our stage. She was part of our Curated Cuisine series October 7th. I found out that was a memorable date for her earlier in the evening, 2019. And usually I don't need notes when I introduce speakers. I pride myself on memorizing things, but I can't do it with Tiffani. What she's accomplished in 3 years, I have a list here. Under Big Heart Hospitality, she has 5 restaurants: Sweet Cheeks, Fool's Errand, Tenderoni's Pizza, Dive Bar, Bubble Bath. Nominated James Beard Best Chef Northeast 4 times, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2022. You're going to win this.
I wasn't nominated this year, so I am not.
Next year.
Nope. It's over.
Food Network star, competitor in Tournament of Champions, won the 3rd time. Beachside Brawl, Chopped, Guys Grocery Games. Board of Directors for Women's Chefs and Restaurateurs, and Board of Directors for Boston Alliance of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Youth. In addition, you find time, lucky for WBUR, to be a monthly guest on Radio Boston with Tiziana Dearing. We love your conversations with Tiziana, so naturally, we asked Tiziana to be your interlocutor. Take it away.
And I said, nah.
I would have said the same thing. Said, girl, you're on your own.
You ready?
Yes, and thank you for having me. That was a lovely intro. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm
Adore
happy to be
spending
here
time
with
with
you
you.
too. And I'm going to say right off the top, and I always have to look back at the screen to remind myself the exact code for it, but if you want to pose questions, you can do that at sly.do #cuisine. That is sly.do #cuisine, and we'll work your questions in throughout our conversation. It was fun to prepare for this because we've been talking on air for a year. Mm-hmm. And so it was fun to kind of go back to some of the themes that we've shared, some of my favorite things I've learned from you and about the food world, et cetera. So I'm hoping to do a little bit of a greatest hits.
Let's do it.
Excellent. And so I do think we should start with food.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good place to start with me.
And so I was thinking we should start with the Boston food scene.
Okay.
We'll go a little deep in a minute, but it's January 2023. Mm-hmm. In this moment, what do you think characterizes the Boston food scene?
That's a tough question. It's so hard to talk about the Boston food scene right now because I think it is shifting, like tectonically shifting. Boston's a city that has been the city to watch for like 10 years, 15 years, right? And there is a little bit of, we've been on the rise, and there's the people that have really founded this city in terms of cuisine. When I think about Jody Adams and Barbara Lynch and Lydia and Gordon and Todd in some ways, and those names are as ever, I think, present in the city, most of them, as they always have been. And maybe they're not like the hot young list makers all the time, but I feel them all the time. It's not like I feel like other cities, some of those names kind of come and go. And I feel like that's not the case with Boston, and I'm grateful for that all the time. I do think that there is, we in Boston really ignored and did not make space for chefs of color, for queer chefs. I will say this, I don't know if it's as much categorized, it's not as easy to categorize as that. We were a city who didn't like outsiders for a very long time. I think we still suffer from it a little bit, but it was like you had to bleed the Boston Bee, you had to have it tattooed somewhere on your body. You had to, you had to know every member of the Red Sox. Like it was like a whole situation. You had to grow up here. You had to, sound like you were from Southie for a really long time to have like cred in this industry, and I wasn't and didn't. And so I was very conscious of that. I think that's changing, which is better because we have to be able to welcome people from other cities to make a home here. You don't have to grow up here and bleed blue to to be able to make a home here, and for us to continue to like evolve as a city in terms of our culinary prowess and who we are and where we want to go. So I think we're getting a little bit better about that. I do think in some ways we sort of overshot the making up for all the things that we weren't doing for so long, and I think I hope we're trying to understand where we're going now. So I don't have answers to this right now. I know that for myself and for Big Heart, I have strategically made my restaurants like very, very fun and very approachable right now. Orfano's no longer open. It was very high end. We are more than likely heading into a recession right now. And it was a combination of a lot of things, like, never got its legs underneath it, pandemic, the neighborhood, Fenway was going to a certain place, and then I think the pandemic sort of cut it out at its knees. There was a confluence of things that happened that, contributed to Orfano not being viable. So I've made a very conscious decision right now to like do restaurants that are approachable and fun until we get through whatever this time is. I lived through 2008 and 9, barely. So I don't know. That was a long-winded answer to say.
It was,
I don't
and there are
know.
like 20 things,
Yeah.
right? 20 things to pick
Cool.
up from there.
I don't
You gotta keep
know is
track of
the
all of them.
answer. Yeah.
All right, so let's pick up a couple of those 20 things. First, this is an interesting question from an audience member who says, do I see echoes of the Orfano menu at Tenderoni?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I took a lot of the fun things, meatballs, mozzarella stick, the Caesar salad. I took a lot of things that I had at Orfano that I love deeply, shrimp scampi, and brought them over to Tenderoni's and just made them a lot more fun.
So one of the things that was striking at the beginning of your answer was you talked about sort of the chefs that came before you, and they're still present here, and you're grateful for that. In the world of politics, in the world of nonprofits, in the city, you actually hear the younger generations express a lot of frustration.
Sure.
That the folks are still around. They're
Yeah.
like, on the way, I want my turn.
Right.
So I was intrigued that that is not your reaction.
Doesn't mean that I'm not frustrated with some of the things that happened previously, right? One of the things that you'll notice in the people that built this city is they're majority women. So I'm not saying the culture was perfect in every kitchen. I'm not saying don't have cultural issues, and we talked about this the last time I was here. So interesting in all of the like cultural reckoning and the Me Too movement, we have not had one chef go down in Boston. Because we're perfect?
Should we have a chef go down in Boston?
Absolutely.
Do you want to say anything more
Multiple,
about that?
absolutely not. Yeah, it's not that we don't have those issues culturally. We had a journalist call around to everyone, and everyone had stories about kitchens we've worked in, things that we know about other chefs, and largely called the women. And we put ourselves on the line to have conversations about the things that we knew. No story was ever written. And when I had a conversation with the journalist and said, whatever happened to this? She said, well, if everyone's to be believed, every man in this city is an abuser. So what am I going to do? Well, I don't think every man in the city is an abuser, but also, isn't that your job to suss it out?
So I'll ask you again, is there any more that you'd like to say about that here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say this. There are still people operating that would shock you, that are, I think people's behavior has changed a little bit, and I don't think it's altruistic. I think it's because they're so deeply afraid of going down. But yeah, there are chefs that you know and love that have created, built, supported, and live in cultures of abuse in the city.
Okay, so 2 follow-up questions to that. One, can we fully make a change if no one ever goes down?
No.
So it's going to happen, you
Yep.
think? All right. So this is my open call to journalists. You heard not that I'm not one, but I'm not going to do it right here on stage because you've already said twice you're not going to do it.
Right.
But this is the open call to journalists. There's a story here.
I think it's called doing your job.
All right, fair enough.
And these are the same journalists that hold us accountable for what we do and how we do it. And
So I'm going to keep doing my job for the
cool.
next 45 minutes or so. And I think my next question on that is, so what's different in your kitchens?
well, I didn't bust my ass to in kitchens where I was abused, left, right, and center, to be able to like pass that along to the next generation. I made sure that in rising to do this and not giving the best years of my life away and not continuing to like spin my wheels for people who didn't see me, didn't want to see me, and couldn't understand women, people of color, queer people in kitchens, I was never going to do that. I worked to be able to get out of that, to not do that. So there's culture that just doesn't, this is not to say my kitchens are perfect. That's not it at all. My kitchens aren't perfect. We make mistakes. People say dumb things. Like, it's not, we're not, yeah, we're human. It's about understanding how to approach it, that we have a baseline of understanding what our culture is and we're clear about it and we talk about it with each other. And then when someone doesn't live up to what we say and who we are, we have conversations about it. And it's not screaming in the middle of the kitchen, like, what were you thinking? What did you say? It's having conversations that are not filled with shame, giving people the benefit of the doubt that that's not what they meant. Let's have a conversation. The person to whom it was directed, having that conversation. And understanding that everyone is different and it's not, you don't correct a culture in abuse or shame. But when something happens that we're always having the conversations, it needs to be resolved in 72 hours. It's usually never resolved that night because everyone's too hot to do it. So we come back and it needs to be resolved in 72 hours.
Did you get help with that? I mean, we know where your deep expertise is. It's in food, it's in cooking, it's being a chef. The things that you're talking about are organizational development skills, they're diversity, equity, and inclusion skills, they're difficult conversations, et cetera. How did you develop those muscles, especially with 5 restaurants and a TV career? You can't be in every kitchen.
I can't. So, lots of therapy. I've been in therapy my whole life, so that's how I've developed some of those skills. But it's also, we have a really strong no assholes policy in our company, and the people that stay and that continue to work as a tight senior team, I know, that's what it is, no assholes. They don't want that in their lives. We don't live in drama. We like the work that we do. We enjoy each other. I mean, we're like constantly trying to scare the shit out of each other all the time, like popping up out of everywhere and like scaring each other and doing pranks and stuff like that. Like, we're stupid. Like, we're like children. But we take joy in that stuff and also in the work that we do and holding each other up and supporting each other. It's a lot of fun. I don't want to give the impression that we're all like, just trying to be like perfect all the time. That's not it. But we have developed a shared moray and culture that if that starts to crack, we no longer exist in the way that we do, and we start to erode trust for each other, and then the people that work for us no longer work in a company that that is who they say they are. So it's something that you have to constantly be steering the ship back on course. I don't know where it came from. It just came from, frankly, being so tired of working in those environments that I had no more patience for it.
One of our listeners is asking, quote, I know that you've been working to influence a better focus on the back of the house.
Yep.
Have other restaurants picked up on the idea? Who else is working on the back of the house?
I think, yes, they have. And I think there's been more and more focus on really changing and making more sustainable lives for the back of the house. There are things I can't change. I can't change it. It's very physical. I can't pay what I'd like to pay. That's restaurants live in very slim margins. I can do certain things. We have a 5% kitchen appreciation charge that goes to the back of the house directly. I pay payroll tax on that. My payroll is higher. Taxes are higher on that, but it flows directly through. Thank you all for paying it. It's meaningful for our cooks. Increases their hourly wage anywhere in the slow season from $2 an hour to like sometimes it's up to like $4 or $5 an hour in our busy season. So it is meaningful to them. There are things that we can do. There's things I can't change. There's things I can. So I think people are really starting to look at it. I think the most women in this city, there are exceptions. So there are certain women that are still on shift pay in their kitchens. You come in and know how long, not just women, there's a lot of people in the city that have shift pay. So you come in and no matter how many hours you work, you make $125 and that's it. And they still haven't been dug out. And so when that happens, when someone's exposed and they're paying shift pay or they're doing something that's a wage claim, what happens is the Department of Labor will come in with the IRS and do like a giant audit. And then that restaurant is responsible for like all the back wages for everyone that's ever been paid that way in treble. So why are you still doing that? Because you feel you're protected in some way. So I don't know what that means for those people and how they can feel that protected. It scares the living.
It's so interesting because this piece of this theme is not something we've really talked about before. I really hear you exhorting for a level of daylight that we have not shined on the restaurant industry in Boston right now.
Right. Yeah, it's important. I mean, the best disinfectant is sunshine, daylight. We just don't talk about it. And we talk about like livable wage and some sort of life that feels sustainable in some ways. And sustainability is not just like how we source our food. It's how we treat each other. It's how we pay people. And it's the hours that we keep.
All right, so let's step back because my next place was going to be food, but I that's not the vein we're in right now.
We're not going to talk
right?
about food at all tonight.
Yeah,
are
we'll
we?
probably talk about food a little, and we'll eat some later. So I want to go back. One of our listeners had asked, how'd you come to Boston? So we'll start there, and then we're going to go back further.
2 duffel bags. Not kidding. Went through my first breakup with my first real girlfriend. We were together for 3 years. I was heartbroken. We were living together. I was in Berkeley, California, working. I was bartending. I had no goals in my life. I would dropped out of college. I was kind of a mess. And my brother was at Emerson. He was in grad school, and he said, you can always come stay here. I was like, I'm fine. 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm on my way. So I packed 2 duffel bags and moved in with my brother. He lived in Dorchester, and he moved 2 months later. He ended up getting a news gig in North Carolina, and that was it. I found an apartment, and my first gig in Boston was slinging drinks at Lucky's. Yep. And then I ended up working, it's a long story, but I ended up working back of the house. I was, got a job, begged to be able to learn the kitchen at Bonfire for Todd, and had no idea who Todd was or what kitchen culture was or what, I had no idea. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I didn't know what celebrity chefs were. It looked like a sport, and I think that's what I was attracted to, this idea of it being a sport and kind of chaos at the same time. And I was really next level terrible, and I was lonely. I missed home. I knew everyone in San Francisco was waiting for me to come back home. They were setting their watches. They were like, how long is it going to be? So I made a promise to myself. I didn't like cooking, and hadn't exactly fallen in love with Boston yet. It can be a tough city, guys. I know that's a surprise. Until it's not, until it loves you deeply, and then and then you're in.
Wait, do you feel loved now?
I do, yeah. I feel mutual love. I love Boston as much as I feel loved by Boston, yeah. And so I looked up. I don't know. I made myself a deal that I wouldn't leave, wouldn't go home. I would go home, but I wouldn't go home until I didn't hate cooking and I felt better about Boston. And it was probably a year and a half, and I had fallen in love with cooking. I wasn't good yet, but I was really challenged by it, and I wasn't terrible anymore. And I had fallen in love with the city, and I just thought, okay, well, I think I'll stay.
Why do you call San Francisco home?
I did call San Francisco home, didn't I? I went to high school.
It's not where you're from.
It's not where I'm from. I'm really from here in a lot of ways. I'm from nowhere, honestly. If anything, this is now where I'm from. High school, junior high school, college, coming of age years, up until 22 was San Francisco. Came of age a little bit, yeah.
Can we talk about your family a little bit?
Sure.
So you and your brother are still close.
Might get weird. Nick is not my biological brother, so Nick is my best friend. He is, he's in the news business. He is my person. He's my best friend, the person with whom I share everything. Beautiful black gay man, lesbian. We are the same human in very different bodies. And he is not. He went to Emerson here. He went to University of California, Berkeley. I will talk about him all day. You have to stop me. So he's my person. My biological brother lives with my mother, has always lived with my mom. They live in Salem, Oregon. And then I have one more brother who's not biological, who is a general contractor and splits his time between Wyoming and Hawaii.
So, I was thinking about this. You've talked some about your dad in public.
A little.
That you've been estranged from him, that he struggled with alcoholism. You don't talk a lot about your mom.
I do, actually.
Yeah?
I'm only happy to talk about my mom. She's rad.
So let's talk some more about her.
Yeah, my mom is amazing. She was obviously married to my dad. That's how I came along. I don't think you need more on that. She graduated from high school, never went to college. No one in my family has ever graduated from college other than my non-biological brother, including myself. Just a scrapper. Her mom died. Actually, her mom died right after I was born. I was born in Germany, and she didn't make it back to her mom's funeral because of me. Sorry, Mom. And when my father was in the military, we traveled. We really left every 2 or 3 years was a new place. She worked as a bank teller.
Yep.
And just continued to work. And every time it was time for her to move up into a management position, it was time to move. And so my father finally retired. We were in Santa Rosa, California. She ultimately became the vice president of a small credit union, and then she became the vice president of Chevron Federal Credit Union. And she kicks ass, man. She just works. Like, that woman grinds. So
Does she know how proud of her you are?
I think I hope, God, maybe I should tell her more. But yeah, I think, she does. I've definitely told her. I should tell her more.
And where was food in your family? I mean, for a lot of people, I was talking to a colleague earlier today. He said, when I hear food, the first place I go is my grandmother's kitchen.
Yeah, I didn't know any of my grandparents.
So what was food to you growing up?
Tater tot casseroles. I mean, it was, cream and mushroom soup. I would crack a Pepsi before I left in the morning to go to high school, throw some Eggos in, some Pop-Tarts. My mom worked all the time. Like, she had kids to support and not any other financial means because of, other circumstances. And so there was a lot of fending for yourself, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, we were never hungry. We never were cold, and we always had a roof over our heads, but we didn't have a lot of means, and there was a lot of like expectation that you have to contribute in this home. Like, we have to do this together. We're a team. So get your ass up and make some breakfast and go to school. She was already gone by the time I woke up in the morning. But she's a great cook, makes incredible fried chicken. She's Southern. So the casseroles, I'm not making fun of tater tot casserole. It is delicious.
Is it like a cheesy or a cream sauce?
It's a beef layer. It's a little shepherd's pie kind of situation.
There we go.
Then you very strategically laid tater tots on the top to where they're like mashed potato on the bottom, crispy on the top. You with me now? Yeah. I mean, I grew up with like really, kind of earnest, very like I think the food that Middle America eats. I will say this: we traveled a lot as a family in the military, and so when I think about them as human beings when they were young, it's wild. They made the very like worldly, and I'm grateful for it, intelligent decision. We never lived on an army base. We always lived off base, whether we were in Greece or Oklahoma or Texas, Germany. We lived in a little farm town in Germany. And so people would have us into their homes, and we would have our neighbors into our homes. We'd have a taco night. As it turns out, Germans hadn't really seen tater tot casserole before, so big deal in a little farm town called Schwand. And we had a rule, like, you don't have to like it, but you do have to try it. And so that was pervasive in the culture of our home. And I mean, I remember, and my, father was from California, my mom's Southern by way of California, and I remember going to lunch, like in the, cafeteria, brought out my lunch, and I had like an artichoke wrapped in foil. Good luck trading that thing away. But that was about as gourmet as it got in our house. Like, we liked good food, but our definition of good food was not highbrow.
So trace for me, right? You've got these 5 restaurants. Yep. Trace back to that kitchen and trace it to something on a menu in one of your restaurants now.
Well, Sweet Cheeks is easy, right? All of it. I grew up, my mother's broccoli cheese casserole is literally on the menu. It outsells mac and cheese. So I grew up with all of that food. Tenderonis, I used to, I used to like cheat the book it system for Pizza Hut. There was this program where like you could get a free personal pan pizza, and we didn't go out to dinner. We just didn't have the money, so you could get a free personal pan pizza if you read 5 books. You got your stamps. They were mostly Archies, like they weren't books. Let's be clear, but I would say they were books. And then I would go. So that's Tenderonis. I think is kind of in some ways related to that. And the roller rinks that I grew up on in Army bases, like our entertainment, we would go to base, and it was bowling alleys, pool halls, and roller rinks. Highbrow, I know, guys. So there's a little bit of nostalgia in Tenderonis for that for me. Dive bars in 100% New England, and really not influenced by my growing up. It's really more straight war fears. And we weren't drinking champagne, I'll tell you that. So bubble bath is, hot dogs. So
I kind of wondered if you were going to say bubble bath on the hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah. I ate so. I mean, yeah, it's great, guys.
You have said to me before that Boston needs to let its hair down, and
yeah.
I guess I assume that hot dogs and champagne is your
That's how we
call
do it.
to Boston.
Yeah, I'm not saying we have to roll around in the dirt together. We can have champagne while we're eating our hot dogs, guys. We can do this together, I promise. Hold my hand and come along.
All right, so let's do a little lightning round of 3 audience questions. So I'm going to ask the question, basically a 1 word or a yes or no, boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
All right, first, do you have a favorite of your restaurants?
No.
Okay. I'm going to ask you that again. Do you have a favorite of your restaurants?
The one with the least problems is making the most money. What?
Okay. Wait, which one has...
No.
All right, second question. Would you ever mass market your barbecue sauces from Sweet Cheeks?
Yeah, sure. But barbecue sauce is like one of the biggest categories of products out there. It's very hard to stand out.
All right, what about...
And I'd be standing next to like the guy with the spiky hair, like trying to sell barbecue sauce.
Okay, what about your biscuits? Hint, hint, is what they...
Yes, and have worked on it. It's so hard to produce them that doing a co-packer with it doesn't make sense. We're going to have to do our own. We're going to have to make them ourselves, freeze them, and ship. Like, we can find someone else to ship them, but like, I've looked at a bunch of places. Like, when you go into a place like this, like, you give them a cookie recipe and like they produce 17 different people's cookies. The machinery that it takes to do it does not produce the biscuit that we have. We have tried to make it more efficient. We have tried to make it less time consuming. We just don't have the same biscuit. It is made by hand.
All right, last one, and go ahead, give her the applause. Last one in our lightning round, your go-to pizza order.
Okay, I will screw up a pizza so hard. I overthink it every time. My last one, I had bar pizza last night at a place called Red Wing in, like, I don't know, somewhere. I was going to see the Judds last night, so somewhere out there. It was a bar pizza with tomato, olives, onion, Italian sausage. Sometimes it's like eggplant and ricotta. Sometimes I'll just do veggie, but like, please don't put green peppers on my veggies. It's so gross, and I don't want canned artichokes. I'm all over the place.
So what's the best veggie to put on a pizza?
Fried eggplant. I don't know, fresh tomatoes in the summer. I love wilted lettuces on like bitter greens on pizza. I don't know. You can, yeah.
You want to do some TV stuff now?
Sure.
All right, so I've got a clip I'm going to play. This is 2022, Season 3, Tournament of Champions. This is episode 5,
Funky
right?
monkey in this.
Let's and you're competing against Amanda Freitag.
Yep,
Here.
my girl.
What don't you want?
I don't know what an air fryer is.
I don't want mussels. Come on. Come on. What the hell?
Mussels, cabbage, air fryer, grilled in 45 minutes. Chefs, 45 minutes. Get it done. Go.
This is a mussel broth kimchi jjigae. In this soup, you will also find some cabbage. The cabbage was grilled. The air fryer was used to make these crispy, porky bits there. That is Chinese sausage. And then it was also used to give some texture and color to the tofu.
I think it takes a lot of guts to put kimchi front and center. The cabbage, really beautiful charred.
This is a really well-executed, interesting dish. But I have to tell you, the tofu is my favorite part.
For me, this is very bold. Too bold.
Oh, for the love.
The chef that will continue on will be
What?
Jada's tough. She doesn't eat. She likes to put food around her plate until she thinks my food's the best, and then she's great.
So spoiler alert for those who may not know, you did go on to win.
Not that season. I came back the next season.
Is that not the one
That's
with Brooke
season
Williamson?
2. I won season 3.
That's season 2. Okay. But Margaret's here, and then she's like, do better next time. All right, so season 3, you beat Brooke Williamson in the end. Really fascinating when you watch the final episode because you really reflect on how long you didn't feel good enough.
Yeah.
Right? And in fact, as
Anyone feel good enough all the time? Show of hands.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And yet, there is this. Okay, so I had a conversation with a pro soccer player a couple of days ago, Henry Kessler, New England Revolution.
I was hoping it was a woman they were going to be cute, but
He's a cutie, but that's different.
next.
And he talked about, at 12 years old, wanting to be a pro soccer player and not being like, I hope, but I am going to be a pro soccer player.
Yeah.
Right, at 12 years old. For you, it seems like much more of a journey of others believing in you and believing you were a champion before you did. Is that fair? Or is that just my perception or my projection, right, in watching you across these shows?
That's such an interesting question and really astute. Is my therapist here? Can we talk about it? Combination of both, probably. I mean, See, the season 1 of Top Chef was so damaging for me. You know, it was like watching the entire country say, "We don't like you. You're a bitch. Go away."
Okay,
like,
so we do need to pause there for
it's
people.
really
so
hard
they
to
know
come
the
back from that and be like, "Hey, I'm like meant for something great."
Right.
Like,
So 2006.
Yeah.
You're the first openly lesbian contestant.
yep, first queer person, openly queer person.
Openly queer person, and they put you out as a villain.
Yep.
And we've talked before about how you look back now at sort of letting yourself be positioned that way, but they
know it was gonna
positioned
happen.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought I was like coming from tough kitchens, and I thought it was going to be all chefs that come from tough kitchens. And, I don't know.
Yeah. But you got sold a certain way.
Yeah.
And it really affected you for years.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I assisted the selling. Like, I was not blameless in this. Like, I want to be really clear. It wasn't like I showed up and I was like, you know, I wasn't someone who was there to be on TV. I was there as a litmus test for where I was in my career. I was there to be a badass cook. I was, you know, you sort of watch, and reality television was still very new at this point. Like, we were all like, I mean, the general public was like, when is this going away? Never. Yeah, I didn't understand the formula for how it was. And Top Chef is less formulaic now. Even, you know, I don't know how openly they'll talk about it, but when I talk to the people that have been in it from jump, they were like, look, it was like American Idol format. Like, we needed a Simon, and we needed a blah, 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 we needed a villain, and we needed this. And so they looked at it through that lens in order to kind of launch it. So no one was doing anyone any favors in that first season. So
now
it was tough.
Now you fast forward.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 2006. Now it's 2022.
Yep. 23.
Well, no, in the show 2022, and it is now 2023. Thank you. And you know, watching you and Brooke in that last. All right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a little footage of you and Brooke in a new show, Beachside Brawl, which you did this summer.
Yep.
And it's East Coast, West Coast. You're pitted against each other. You're the East Coast coach. She's the West Coast coach. And this is you guys playing a little game.
It's funsies,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
You looked at it like you've never seen it before, so I was like, this is gonna be exotic.
Okay, so it's made out of bread, but it's eaten for breakfast, and it's sweet. It's like battered and then cooked. Yep.
Okay.
Known for it on the East Coast. There are lots of different toppings, one of which should never be pineapple. You find this on a pier or a boardwalk. It's a sweet, covered in yes. You find these also on a pier more often on the East Coast. They're wrapped in pepper and twisted on the edges.
Yeah!
Known for this in Maine, it is the seafood.
Lobster!
Yeah.
Try to articulate this. So there's this moment, you and Brooke, you're in the championship. You guys hug outside the trailers. We talked about this on air. You hug outside the trailers. And you say to her, are you ready to go down? She thinks you say, are you ready to go? She's like, yeah. And you're like, no, I said go down. Right? And she's like, no. Right? And there's this tension and this competition. And they're during the show, they're judging you and you're not sure if you've done the right things.
Yes.
And I see that. And we talk about 2006. And then I see the ease of this.
Yeah.
The ease in you of this. And it's like watching you on the Food Network go through a personal journey.
Sure.
And that's weird because TV does not have the reputation of taking people through a positive, self-affirming, healthy journey.
Correct.
That takes them to a self-confident place.
Yeah.
So you're waiting for the question in that, aren't you? Yeah. So I think...
I'm not feeding it to you.
I think the question is, I want to know, did TV do that for you, or did you do that in spite of TV? That's what I want to know.
I did it in spite of TV.
Okay.
I think people will go on the journey that they're supposed to go on if they do the work, whether they're on TV or not.
So did TV have anything?
Sure. I saw myself behave like an asshole on Top Chef, and I was like, ooh, this ain't good. And again, like, you know, it's probably like equal blame in terms of editing and myself. I take responsibility for that. But I went on like a 10-year apology tour after that. And at some point, that apology tour, I was like trying to prove to everyone that I met that I wasn't this person. It's like, this is exhausting. I'm really carrying so much water. I don't need to carry anymore. So peeling that back. And then I let TV go for a really long time. Chopped called me to compete. And I was like, no, not really. A couple years, called me. We want you on this girl competition. Finally said yes, did like a Skype interview with them, like an audition that I was a little like, why do I have to do this audition? You know who I am, like just whatever. And then they called me back and said, no thanks. I was like, you can get in 2 years. Like, and then, you know, I felt, and I just thought TV is not for me. Like I'm done. I'm really done. I had a partner at the time that really convinced me that TV was really bad for me. Wasn't supportive in that realm. And then Chopped called like 3 weeks later and they're like, we'd like you to guest judge. And then I kept guest judging until they gave me a regular judge gig. And that was really helpful for me to be on the other side of it, to have earned a position. I wasn't cast. I kept coming back and it was like, they were not looking to add another judge. They hadn't added a judge in 10 years. So that did a lot for me. And it allowed me to evolve into a place where I could see myself differently. Meanwhile, I'm doing my own work around, you know, the stuff that we should be doing as humans. Like, do my ideas of myself line up with who I am every day, with how I run my businesses? It was really way more focused on like running my businesses at the time. But it was a confluence of things that came together at the right time and became, I think, helpful for me in my personal and professional growth. And it, all in all, it's been good. When I'm in competition mode, I am in competition mode. I mean, I can joke around and have fun, but when it's go time, it is go time. Like, I take it seriously. It's lots of fun for me, but you guys want to make a dish like in 45 minutes on a wheel with like, no, you like, it's fun for me, but like it's don't
Is
mess
it
around.
fun? Is
yes,
that fun?
the cooking is lots of fun. The like everything around it, I want to throw up. It's like an exercise in like, can I really trust my body? Like it's wild, the things that take over and breathing exercises that I do. And there are a lot of people in these competitions that take anti-anxiety meds before they go on so they can just deal.
So, you know, you didn't know an air fryer. Then you
I do now.
And there was one where it was this anti-fryer. Like
Anti-griddle.
Thank you. The anti-griddle where
Yeah.
it used deep freeze instead of heat.
It's the most useless piece of equipment ever created.
But you had to use
I
it.
had to use it.
Right. So what has made you a better chef? Any of it?
I think who I am as a chef naturally matches up with this. I'm able to think on my feet. I'm creative. So that has always, this has made me a lazier chef, honestly. That's not true. Okay, in some ways it has. Because I'll put things off because I know I can get stuff done really fast. So I'll be answering emails. I could do this thing where I'm like, if I can just get like these other 20 things done, and then when I get in the kitchen, I'll just bang it out. Blah, blah, blah. That does nothing. It's a disservice to my kitchens, and it's stupid for me. And it also like puts me in a situation where I can enjoy it less because I'm so under the gun when I do things. Wow, welcome to my therapy session. But I also think it makes me think differently about food, and it also has exposed my blind spots and things that I don't know. We were talking about this, so like I really try and take on like regional cooking and read a lot about it and start to understand it and research and cook it, things that I don't understand or don't have any sort of depth of knowledge of.
So one of our audience members wants to know, which one's more fun, running a restaurant or doing the TV stuff?
Yes. They both are so wildly different. You know, like this is deeply fun, right? It's great, and I get to meet people. I will say the chef community in this world is so much more supportive and kind than the chef community in the restaurant world. And that's unfortunate.
That is interesting. Yeah. And it was something that struck me because, you know, you and Brooke, first you're facing off, you'd faced off before, and now and there does seem to be a camaraderie there.
Totally,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that there's a gratitude of the chefs that are in this world together, that we understand that not everyone gets to do this, and we're in a little bit of rarefied air. And it is fun, and most of us have been in restaurants, so it feels like it's not a break, it's stressful, but it's different. Sometimes there's a bucket of crabs mentality in restaurant chefs, where it's like, there's a premise of everyone wanting each other to succeed, and then when someone starts to succeed, crabs grab you down, and you start from jump again. And I would love to see that change in restaurant culture.
So you want to do another quick lightning round?
Sure.
All right, so we're going to do
Can
TV.
I say no at some point?
Yeah, no, not really.
No.
I mean, you can refuse to answer.
I'm leaving.
So we'll do a couple of TVs and movies, and I'll say, you know, have you seen it? What did you think?
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I love this.
First one comes from the audience, the menu. Have you seen it? What did you think?
Yes, hilarious. I saw it with, actually, we filmed TOC, Tournament of Champions, and like 15 of us went to the movie theater together and watched it.
Did everyone love it?
We laughed our asses off. Minute fell asleep. She was snoring. I'll post the video at some point.
There you go. The Bear.
Hesitated to watch it. They got so many things right, guys. So many things right. And they avoided the trappings of things that 99% of like restaurant and chef movies do. There was no substance abuse that was obvious, right? There was no like crutch of alcohol, which was nice to see. There was codependency and grief. We hadn't seen that be dealt with at all. There was no romantic or inappropriate relationship between the chef and the sous chef. Like all of those things are just like potholes that we see these movies always fall in. And it's just like it's a crutch. It's like, so they avoided all of that, which is great. I really would have liked to have not seen like all the money in the tomato cans at the end. If you haven't seen it, sorry. But like no one in restaurants wins the lottery. So other than that, it was great.
Big Night.
I love Big Night so much.
Why?
It's almost like a restaurant film noir, like a little bit, right? And it's this idea of just this one chance, and if we can just, it reminds me of
Two Brothers. Yeah, I don't want to give any more away than that.
Just
Big
watch
Night,
it.
Two Brothers.
It's so great. Have you read the book Bel Canto?
No.
It's
Oh,
kind of, it
somebody
has
said
that
yes.
vibe to me a little bit. That's like if we can only just get this one night under our belts, like it'll save us, kind of thing. None of that's ever true, but I like the idea of it.
Yeah. And what's the one maybe we haven't seen that you think we should?
Eat, Drink, Man, Woman.
Oh.
The first 3 minutes of that is some of the most extraordinary film ever, and it's gorgeous food photography. It is, the family dynamics are unbelievable. It's really worth your time.
All right, so we're going to shift now to drag queens.
Well, yes, obviously.
Right. That's where we're going next.
That's what I came here for.
And I'm going to
Took us
start.
long enough.
I'm going to start with some video. You, Pride Night, Fenway Park.
Yes.
June 2022, throwing out the first pitch.
Here to throw out a ceremonial first pitch, escorted out to the mound by performers Assassination, Coleslaw, and Pamela Manderson. Please welcome Tiffani Faison. All right, Tiffani, how about a pitch?
All right, so there is a true before and after here, and we're going to do it like that. So we're going to start with the before. You were actually on Radio Boston that day, or the day before, within 24 hours of that, and we were talking about your prep and how excited you were.
Terrified.
It was really meaningful to you.
Hugely. Not a lot of people get to do that. I mean, and also being someone that's not from Boston and feeling that, and becoming someone that is now, I really consider myself from Boston and a true Bostonian, and that sort of, it galvanized so many things for me. Like, it was like a hug from the city. It felt really celebratory. I was so honored that it was Pride Night. There's the first drag queens to ever be on the field. How long has that park been there? And to be able to do that was incredible. My whole team was there. It was just like, I couldn't believe the literal grass I was standing on. It was pretty incredible.
So then we get to the next day.
Yeah.
Right. And I wrote down a tweet that you put out the next day, and I'm going to read it for you here, where you say, and of course, I got to find it here. Okay, I'm just going to let it go. I was going to give you the exact text. The next day you say, it was this great moment in my life. It felt so amazing. And then the next morning, I wake up to a series of, and your quote was BS comments. And social media went hard. And they went hard at you, they went hard at the drag queens, they went hard at the gay community, they went hard at Pride, and it seemed like it hurt you quite deeply.
Of course it did.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. My sweet friends came out and supported me, didn't have to. Put themselves in a very public situation. Everyone was jubilant that night, like that we got to celebrate our community in the most festive and raucous and lovely way. And everything just felt so good that night. And I actually had someone wake me up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Was like, you should look at Twitter. And I was like, I don't really care about it. And then I kind of wiped my eyes and look at it, and they were like, no, it's bad. And it was, we were being called abusers and groomers, and it's hard because at some point, you know, if I'm being really honest, I've constructed a pretty lovely bubble in my life. And that's not to say I'm oblivious to things that are going on in this country, obviously, like no one is anymore. But I've lived in San Francisco and I've lived in Boston, and you know, I work with LGBTQ organizations, and I understand that abuse does happen, and I understand it viscerally, and work with people for whom it's been real, and victims, and it's not that I haven't experienced it. I haven't experienced it in like 20 years. It also doesn't really. My company is very queer, and it's mine, and I don't know, I just hadn't put myself in a position to be that vulnerable, and I didn't really think that I was. Not that I would have changed it, I would have still done it. But I felt really badly for the queens, and this is, you know, a time when we're shooting up story time with drag queens, and people's safety is really in question. And so I worried for them really deeply, and I reached out to them, and they had some concerns for their safety, and I didn't really have any concerns for my own safety, but it was just nasty, and it was awful, and it was mostly through the Red Sox and Essen. It was Nesson through their Twitter accounts. And so it sparked conversation with both Nesson and the Red Sox of like, okay, guys, like you can't just change your logo to a rainbow in June and call it good. You have to address this.
And have they?
We were working on it.
Are you satisfied with
No.
how they're engaging with you?
No.
What do they need to do better?
We need to sit down and have a conversation. They need to like they shut down the Twitter comments. That's not enough. It's not enough. And here's what bothers me the most, aside from the safety of my friends. There are kids out there, there are young people who are Red Sox fans, deep Red Sox fans. There's not a lot of out MLB people, like there's one. And there are a ton of queer people that are playing professional baseball. Hello? Like it's the numbers make it impossible that there aren't, right? There are tons of queer kids that are gonna be incredible baseball players that are growing up, that are environments that are very toxically masculine or have stuff in them that they're already feeling shitty in their locker rooms, and they wanna play baseball, and maybe they're thinking about coming out, or maybe they're in like a fairly supportive high school and thinking about changing the game for, you know, generations to come in their high schools or colleges or whatever it is. And the minute they read that vitriol, it's over for them. They no longer feel safe. They no longer, the reaction to that is 90% of the time is not like, well, screw this, I'm gonna like join on and come out, and like, that's when you're in a situation where you feel like you're the only one, it is nearly impossible to do that. So you just stay in the closet longer, and you have a high school, college, professional baseball career where like no one's out, so we're not changing anything, and nothing changes for the players, and you know, some of them get to bring their wives, and they go to lunches and all that. What about husbands and partners? And it's just, so the cycle continues, right? And it's just such an obvious, not easy, but obvious moment to dig in and be the first MLB team that says, we will not stand for this. We will not allow this to happen on our social media. We will shut it down. The Red Sox have a fraught history with racism anyway. Let's fix this. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to be, you know, you have to go at everything. And the answer is always like, we can't fix it all. We can't, but actually, you can control your social media channels. You can block people. You can make it very hard. You can make the messaging and the support very effing clear. Do it. Do it. You have all the money and the resources in the world. Do it. Not that hard.
One of our audience members wants to know if we can have a drag brunch at Tenderoni's.
We already have.
Yes.
The legendary Tiger Drag Brunch has now become the legendary Tenderoni's Drag Brunch. We had January. It was unbelievable. If you guys have not been, it's hard to explain. Like, I don't feel like my feet are on the ground. People are having the best time. Drag queens are doing their show, and then we do a lip sync for your life, and people like leave their bodies. I've seen grown straight cis white men think they're Celine Dion. It is fabulous. Everyone has the best time. So the next one is February 5th. It's the first Sunday of every month. So we're nearly sold out for February 5th. We release our tickets like a couple weeks before. Get your tickets.
So
bring your dollar bills.
There you go. Yeah. So last thing on this front, call to action.
Yes.
Right. As you mentioned, there's a local neo-Nazi group stood outside and protested Drag Queen Story Hour, Drag Queen Patty Bure in Jamaica Plain. Right around that same time, we are seeing increasing hostility both here in the Commonwealth and across the country, specifically to drag queen story times, drag queen shows, drag queen nights.
Yeah.
It has become a front line in this culture battle. People watching you tonight who want to be allies, want to step up, are worried about assassination or coleslaw or Pamela Manderson and their sense of safety. What do you want people to do?
Support drag brunches. Come and follow them on social media. Like, it feels they all have, Instagram accounts. Let them know that they're supported and they're loved and you see them. Reach out to your representatives, your senators, your state senators, your congresspeople. Let them know that this is important to you. I know that seems like, it's so interesting. You hear people say, like, reach out to your representatives all the time. And then I talk to a lot of them that are dear friends of mine. They're like, you would be surprised the calls we don't get. People just assume that, it's almost like, what do you call that thing when something happens publicly and there's a bunch of people standing around and like, it's like group apathy, like everyone assumes someone else is doing bystander syndrome, yeah. Someone assumes everyone else is doing it and turns out no one's doing it. So have those conversations, support queer businesses, support people that are, you don't have to go to every drag brunch, guys. Like, those are queer spaces for the most part. Like, if you want to come, you're certainly welcome. That's no problem. Like, tip your drag queens. They are people that, like, really, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but tip them. Like, be generous to them. They come up with all their own stuff, and that's not, none of them have sponsors anywhere. But support those and also be conscious of allowing queer spaces to be queer spaces and know when you're welcome, when you're not welcome. If there are things that have happened that have been detrimental or dangerous for any of those places, start a GoFundMe for security. Pay for security for those places. It's hard. I mean, I'm dealing with it right now a little bit. I've hired a security team for our restaurants, and that's another expense that I have to incur on top of something that has very slim margins because I want to make sure everyone's safe.
A couple audience questions.
Sure.
Is there a memoir coming?
It just happened. Where you been? I don't know. There's a cookbook at some point. I hate writing recipes. I know. God, it makes me sound lazy. I'm not obviously lazy till I am. I need to write a cookbook. I have some thoughts about it. I just haven't had it like a burning direction of what I want to do. And I think writing a cookbook is, and please don't be offended when I say this, it's like having a baby. Unless you like really, really want it, it's a lot of work. Like, don't do it. And I don't want to be in like the half off section. Like,
so wait, let me ask then, and this is out of genuine wanting to understand, why do you need to write a cookbook?
Talk to my agent.
Somebody needs you to write a cookbook.
Yeah, I mean, it is helpful. I mean, it's helpful for your career. You don't need to. And if I write it, I want to write it. I don't want to work with like a ghostwriter who's like writing a bunch of stuff for me. I want it to be really kind of first person and reflect me, and that is just a significant chunk of time that would be probably really good for me to take off. I'm gonna write a cookbook.
So we have two questions from our audience about how you are laying the groundwork for future chefs. One question emphasizes young women coming up in the industry, and one question emphasizes kids who think they might want to eventually be in the industry. So let's put them together. What can you do, or are you doing anything, or is the city doing anything that you think is good to lay that groundwork?
Yeah, I mean, so have you guys heard of Future Chefs? It's an incredible nonprofit organization. They're based out of East Boston, and they really identify like high school students into like some, I think, early college who are interested in being chefs, which is great. I would say for young people that are interested in being chefs, like, I hate to say this, but culinary school is not worth your time. Like, get into a kitchen that's reputable and learn, read everything, practice at home. You really can kind of learn a lot off of watching TV. I'm not shilling for the Food Network, but I am saying, like, you can learn a lot. I used to be like, no one can learn how to cook off of YouTube. I'm like, kind of can. You can't learn the whole thing, but you can learn some basics. And I think it's worth taking that time that you would take in culinary school. I had every intention of going to culinary school. Back then, you had to have 2 years solid experience in a professional kitchen before you went. And by the time I had 2 years, it didn't make sense to incur all this debt. And frankly, there's a lot of them that are just so heinously expensive for what I see people bring out of them. It doesn't match up to me. So I would say that. Just find someone that, I always say this, find someone whose life looks something like you want yours to look like, and get as close to them as you possibly can. And for young women, I hate to say this, but get a hold of what it is you want your life to look like early. If you want to have kids and you want to be a chef, this is like so personal. I didn't want kids, but like, freeze your eggs, take care of the things that you need to take care of, because your 30s are really going to be like serious go time if you want to make a career out of this. So the things that will be important to you, that decade and that time would be really important to raising a family, meeting someone, having a baby. Know that that's probably not going to be prime time for doing the things you want to do personally. It is professionally, so decide which one you want, pick a team.
Can we get to a point where that's not kind of choice is not going to be necessary?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I just think doing this is so hard on your body. It's so hard physically. Your 20s and 30s really are go time. And I've with like very few exceptions have I seen like a woman come into the field in their like 40s and 50s and really make a big bang. I mean, Julia did, but that's different. That's Julia. Like, there's like a world full of Julias. One. I've seen it happen with a couple of people, but these are people that already came from like monster careers doing something else that really had a lot of financial backing that they'd created from themselves, or familial support that allowed them to do that. So I hate to say it, it's just physical and it's tough and it's a young person's game. So,
best meal you've had in the last month?
Meals are so much not just about the food. And 10 years ago, I never would have said that. I would have made it all about the food, and it is about the food, but it's about the environment and the people that you're with. I just cooked dinner for my mom's 72nd birthday at her house. So I sat and had it was like steak and just everything she wanted. And that was lovely just to spend time with my mom. So that was probably it. I also, TMI, this is way too personal. I was in San Francisco last week. There's a restaurant that I love called Murad. It's like, it's unbelievable Moroccan food. I go there all the time, but it was also like kind of one of my best first dates ever.
Oh. Okay, so the "Are you in love?" question might be a little too too far.
Got a little warm in here.
But we just had a recent first date that was really good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any local chef you want to give a shout to right now?
Yes, the Beard Awards just came out. The list is really interesting this year, I think, so take some time and get to know the chefs that are on that list. Who do I want to shout out? I just talked to Jody Adams this afternoon. I just love her. She's just like an extraordinary human being and has been in this doing the right thing and grinding for a very long time. And, she's someone who's smart enough to know that the brass ring's not real. It's about the process. And we just keep each other grounded, and I really love talking to her. So, Jody. And I don't ever think she gets enough hype in this town. Just quite quietly brilliant.
All right, and last question.
Yeah.
What are you loving right now that surprises you?
Sleep.
All right, and on that note, I'll bring Amy McDonald back up for the end of our conversation.
Thank you so much. Wow. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
You're a hero. A week from today, we have Ming Tsai for our curated cuisine. So go to wbur.org/events and sign up for our next curated cuisine. Our winner for the Tenderoni pizza gift certificate is Julie Ann Stoltz.
Where you at, Julie?
Where are you, Julie?
Yeah.
Come on up. And without further ado, Tiffani and her team have made tiramisu nachos, which are out in the lobby. And again, if you've downloaded, you know each other. And if you had a question too. And if you've downloaded the app, remember to show it to Anna, and we'll give you a free drink ticket. We have espresso martinis, but you can have a glass of water as well. So let's, without further ado,
Tiffany, one more hand.
Yes.